Our next speaker today is Ervad Adil Minocheramji. Ervad Adil is a Zoroastrian Mabad and scholar dedicated to bringing the wisdom of the Gathas into lived experience. Trained in the ritual and theological foundations of the Zoroastrian Dana, he combines deep textual knowledge with innovative frameworks that move beyond static descriptions of Ahura Mazda. His work reveals the dynamic, recursive nature of truth and alignment in Asho Zarathustra Sahib's teachings, drawing directly from Avestan sources. Through his lectures, writings, and community dialogue, he engages both the young and elders, showing the Dana as a living pattern that grows, resists, converges, and returns with memory. In his approach, Ahura Mazda is not only to be spoken of, but entered into and embodied in daily life. Ervad Adil Minocheramji is known for weaving scholarship with experiential insight and offers audiences an intellectually rigorous yet spiritually resonant path to recognizing and living the principles of the Zarathustri tradition. Over to you, Ervad Adil Minocheramji.
Thanks, Karishma. 1 second. Can you see my slides?
Perfectly, thank you. Splendid.
Great. So, hi, everybody. My name is Adil, calling in from Los Angeles, California. And today I'll be talking about the wisdom to worship and the shifting perspectives of Ahura Mazda. So, while Karishma gave me a solid introduction, I'm not a scholar, if anything, and particularly not Zoroastrianism, so take my thoughts with a grain or more of salt. You see how much salt that guy's applying on the side, so that much salt is what I would recommend. But my influences for this talk are from Van Savant, Insler, and Hofstetter from an outsider's perspective, as well as Professor Choksi, who will be speaking later today, Ramir Karangia, who taught me all of my Navar prayers, the late Soli Dastur, and my lived experience. So the beginning, the name itself, we've heard so many different translations, and what my understanding is that all of the translations that we've heard so far are true, but the one nuance is that the Zarathustra and the Gathas meant something like the spirit of wisdom. However, there's no perfect one-to-one translation in English because in each different portion of the Gathas, it's very contextual. So some places it could mean existence, reality. In some places it could mean mind, knowing. So it's not necessarily easy to translate into English. But one point that I want to make out very clearly is that in the Gathas, Mazda is not anthropomorphic, which is meaning having human characteristics, but ontological, which is what it means to be itself. So about being, so wisdom being itself as a concept. So all of us have talked about scripture, but in my opinion, the perception of Mazda is the source of good mind, as well as the creator of truth and right, as the judge of our first actions. So less so of a creator in the grander scheme, but a creator of these concepts as well of truth and right. So the wisdom orders itself. In Yasna 44-5, we see the idea about the questions that Zarathustra asks to Ahura Mazda, like who established the sun, who established the moon to wax and wane. We don't get an answer back. Is it other nuance that I want to point out in Yasna 44? It's a question that's posited to Ahura Mazda. And then the other thing is that Ahura is not like a body, like Dadaji, as we oversimplify for the children, as Ramir pointed out last week, or a lord, as we see in later Sasanian theology, but rather a concept of a spirit itself. So how do we experience Mazda? The Mazda is here not to simply be the one who created matter. Mazda is the one who gave choice itself. So to be human is to live in the field of choices, and that possibility comes from Mazda or wisdom. So according to Yasna 30.3, Mazda is aligned with Asha, truth, right order, and righteousness. So like there are two ways of being, the better or the bad in thought, word, and deed. And between the wise, which is the individual, will choose the right way to go forward. So in Yasna 45.6, through truth and mind, through truth and good mind, I perceived Ahura Mazda. He didn't say, I saw Ahura Mazda with my eyes, but he said he perceived Ahura Mazda through Asha and Vahumana, through living truth and good mind. So the important part that I want to take away from this is that the Gathic Mazda, which is, or rather Zarathustra's perception of Mazda, is not an image, but a principle of truthful discernment. So the faith, Vashi, is trust that truth and wisdom are real and reliable. So we take this from a context of Yatha Ahu Vairyo, which is the most ancient formula of our tradition, which translates to as the sovereign, so the leader, their wills are united in truth. The reward for good actions comes through Asha. The power belongs to Mazda when the humble poor are cared for in righteousness. Ahu is the sovereign, which in the Gathas, like there are multiple layers. It's like you don't like look at just the they're like both the metaphysical layer as well as the actual physical layer. So it's a nuance there. And then the Ratu is the leader, but Mazda unites both the abstract cosmic truth along with like social justice. So the big point, like if anything from this entire lecture is to be taken away, when we say good for a thought, word, and deed, and according to Yatha Ahu Vairyo, care for the poor and virtuous is what we mean by good. So now going on to slightly later thoughts about liturgies. So in Ahura we worship Ahura Mazda, and we start applying properties to Ahura Mazda, like radiant, glorious, greatest, best, most beautiful, most firm, wisest, one who attains his ends, which are interesting because they can start to apply to the earlier concept of wisdom itself, but then you can see the proto-anthropomorphic nature of taking this concept and applying it to potentially a creator like God. So the nuance between this is that this vision carried into empire. So many of us have seen the Behistun inscription, where our leadership put up, by the will of Ahura Mazda, our former leadership put up the will of Ahura Mazda, I am king. Ahura Mazda bestowed this kingdom upon me. So in this, Mazda legitimizes the rule, but not automatically. So Darius in the Behistun inscription describes the liar, anybody who distorts truth, is the enemy of Mazda. So to govern rightly is to align with Mazda, to rule falsely is to betray Mazda. So in the Achaemenid period, the concept of Mazda remained the principle of wise order. So kings were measured against Mazda, not the other way around. Here you can see how Cyrus the Great applied this. Both the Babylonians and the Israelites looked positively upon him. In later shifts, we kind of see the beginning of the contracted form of Ahura Mazda, both in phonetic contour as well as conceptual scope, which is like a linguistic flattening that mirrors a theological condensation. Like here in later shift, like in the Bundesian and the Denkard, which are later scriptures, you can kind of see Ahura Mazda is contracted here and starts to become anthropomorphized as well. And as well as in like the legal perspective of the Vandidad, Ahura Mazda starts to take on this lawgiver role, which was not necessarily there in the Gathas. So The major takeaway I want to take away from this evolution is that the mythic lord of Ahura Mazda in the earlier phrase differs from the Lord of Wisdom, which kind of evolved as we transitioned and interacted with other faiths. So just to summarize everything, there's a pre-empire with Ahura Mazda's wise existence, an early empire of Ahura Mazda as the Lord of Justice and Order, late empire with Ormuzd, the contraction with the King of Light and the Cosmic Monarch, and then to date, after the Islamic period to date, Ormuzd is kind of a creator god. So citing both my favorite professors from Indiana, Hofstadter and Choksi, that there presents this thing. So one of the things that I want to point out is that just kind of potentially, if we return to a pre-empire view, it could make a infinite kind of loop. So how do we bring Ahura Mazda into life today? Again, going back to perceiving Ahura Mazda, Mazda is never far away. It's the wisdom we step into each time we choose Asha. It's going to take longer than you expect, even when you take into Hofstadter's law. So Hofstadter's law is that kind of recursive principle. It's never going to be done. It's going to always take longer than you expect, even when you take into Hofstadter's law into account. Ashemvu is a recursive, axiomatic view of it. So Asha is the highest truth. Asha is happiness. Happiness comes to the one who lives for Asha itself. And then Humata Hukta Arashta. So it's like, let thought shape itself in truth. Let speech carry truth into the open. Let action embody truth in the world. And then the recursive arc here, incorporating young Yatha, is wisdom leads to order, which leads to truth, which leads to inclusion, which then back leads to wisdom. And then going into the kind of conclusion of this presentation, fire as an allegory. So fire is living wisdom, and Ahura Mazda is a reference to a anthropomorphized representation of Ahura Mazda. So the logic of fire is it's both good, but every city also has a fire department, because when wisdom is weaponized, its flame is bent to evil and it rages out of control. So fire can both be very good and very bad, as well as the wisdom itself can be used for both good and evil. So the takeaway that I want to put here is that fire is the essence. So living in truth is what burns inside. Expression is the ash, so what history leaves behind. The fire matters more and the ash matters less. There's a lot more to Zoroastrianism than Ahura Mazda, and if you like this talk, you'll love this book. Anne had a chance to read through this presentation, an earlier version, and definitely a big influence on my thought here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ervad Adil. Ervad Adil Minoche Haramji is the son of Ervad Sahib Ardai Viraf Minoche Haramji and the grandnephew of Dasturji Sahib Endi Minoche Haramji, for those of you who may know the great Endi Minoche Haramji Sahib, who could explain to a 7-year-old, me, the great spiritual wisdom in about 5 minutes that has lingered with my mind ever since.